A vampire named Barnabas Collins is released from imprisonment and returns to his ancestral home, where his troubled descendants are in desperate need of his protection. The movie begins in 1760, when the Collins family departs from Liverpool and sails to Maine, New England, with the hopes of growing their business. Upon arriving, they establish a successful fishing company, founding the town of Collinsport and building the grand estate known as Collinwood. Despite their wealth, Barnabas Collins' father ensures that his son understands that family is always the most important thing. 15 years later, Barnabas becomes romantically involved with Angelique, a servant working for the family. However, Barnabas has no idea that Angelique is actually a witch. When she asks for his love and he rejects her, she becomes vengeful. Using her magic, she kills Barnabas's parents. Suspecting something dark, Barnabas starts studying the occult, all while falling in love with a woman named Josette Dupré. Consumed by jealousy, Angelique uses her powers to make Josette leap off a cliff. Barnabas tries to save her, but survives the fall himself, cursed by Angelique to live as a vampire, ensuring his eternal suffering. Angelique then turns the townspeople against Barnabas, calling him a monster. They capture him and bury him alive in a coffin, deep in the forest. Barnabas remains trapped underground for centuries. The story then jumps to 1972, where Victoria Winters is traveling by train to Collinsport after seeing an advertisement for a governess position. She adopts the name Victoria to hide her real identity, as she's running away from home. When Victoria arrives at Collinwood, she's greeted by Willie Loomis, the caretaker, who explains that the once glorious mansion is now in a state of decay. The estate, once home to hundreds of servants, now only has Willie and Mrs. Johnson. Victoria soon meets Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, the family matriarch. Despite Victoria's frank responses, Elizabeth likes her and hires her as the new governess. At dinner, Victoria meets the rest of the Collins family: Elizabeth's lazy brother Roger, her rebellious teenage daughter Carolyn, Roger's troubled son David, who believes he sees his mother's ghost, and Dr. Julia Hoffman, a psychiatrist hired to help David, but who spends much of her time drinking. Victoria sympathizes with David and tells him that she believes in ghosts, a sentiment Elizabeth doesn't appreciate. Later that night, as Victoria gets ready for bed, she encounters the ghost of Josette. The ghost eerily tells her that he's coming, before reenacting her fall from the cliff. Meanwhile, in the forest, a construction crew accidentally digs up Barnabas's coffin. Upon being freed, Barnabas ravenously feeds on the workers, apologizing for his centuries-old hunger. Covered in blood, Barnabas returns to Collinwood, baffled by the modern world around him. When he arrives at the mansion, he uses his hypnotic powers on Willie, compelling him to explain what has happened to the family. After cleaning up, Barnabas formally introduces himself to the Collins family, but Elizabeth takes him aside, suspicious of his true identity. To prove himself, Barnabas reveals a secret room filled with treasure, a place even Elizabeth didn't know existed. Elizabeth, now convinced, agrees to welcome him back into the family, but with one condition: he must keep his identity as a vampire a secret. The next morning, Barnabas is introduced to the rest of the family as a distant relative, Barnabas Collins III. During the family's discussion, it becomes clear that the Collins fishing empire has crumbled, with Angel Bay seafood now dominating the market. Just then, Victoria enters the room, and Barnabas is immediately struck by her resemblance to Josette. Meanwhile, in town, Angelique, now known as Angie Bouchard, has become a powerful CEO, running Angel Bay Seafood. When she hears about the disturbance in the forest, she investigates and is shocked to discover that Barnabas's coffin has been opened. Without hesitation, Angelique drives to Collinwood to confront the family. After exchanging insults with Elizabeth, Barnabas steps in and takes Angelique aside for a private conversation. The moment they're alone, Angelique passionately kisses him and explains how she built her empire to ruin the Collins family. She boasts that the people of Collinsport revere her, while they have forgotten the Collins name. After Angelique leaves, Barnabas confides in Elizabeth, expressing his concerns. She reassures him, reminding him of his strength. Inspired, Barnabas sets out to restore the family's legacy, using treasure from the secret room to hire workers to renovate the mansion and rebuild the fishing business. With sunglasses, an umbrella, and a hat, Barnabas manages to avoid the sun's deadly rays, though he still has trouble finding a comfortable place to sleep, eventually bringing his old coffin back for that purpose. As the business starts to thrive again, Barnabas uses his powers to sway Angelique's fishermen, convincing them to switch sides. As Barnabas becomes more familiar with modern life, Barnabas is confronted by Julia, who has grown suspicious of his odd behavior. Julia invites him to her office, where she hypnotizes him and gets him to confess his vampiric nature. Afterward, she rushes to confront Elizabeth, furious about the secret, but Elizabeth persuades her to keep it quiet, pointing out how fascinating this discovery should be for a scientist like Julia. Intrigued, Julia agrees to study Barnabas rather than expose him. Barnabas later seeks advice from Carolyn about how to court women in the modern world. Carolyn tells him to ditch his old-fashioned ways and hang out with cool people. Following her advice, Barnabas joins a group of hippies in the forest, smoking and sharing stories. But once his hunger overtakes him, he kills them all to feed. Meanwhile, Julia begins giving Barnabas blood transfusions in hopes of curing his vampirism. Despite his gratitude, she seduces him, breaching the doctor-patient line. As Barnabas grows closer to Victoria, bonding over supernatural discussions, Angelique becomes furious about the Collins family's resurgence. While Angel Bay still controls most of the business, Angelique sees it as a personal failure. Determined to stop them, she arranges a meeting with Barnabas and offers to buy out his company. When he refuses, she threatens Victoria's life. Barnabas reluctantly gives in to her advances, and they destroy much of the office in their passion. But afterward, Barnabas realizes his mistake and tells Angelique they cannot be together, prompting her to vow to destroy him. As Barnabas continues his transfusions with Julia, Victoria begins having vivid dreams, recalling her time in the asylum as a child when Josette's ghost first appeared to her. One night, Josette's ghost returns, asking for her help before vanishing. At breakfast, Barnabas announces his intention to throw a grand ball for the whole town to remind them of the Collins family's status. Carolyn advises him to call it a happening, but Barnabas insists on a traditional ball and even hires Alice Cooper to perform live at the event. Not a fan of the music, Barnabas takes a walk during the party and catches Roger stealing from guests' coats. Confronting him, Barnabas gives Roger an ultimatum: be a better father to David or leave. Roger chooses to leave, breaking David's heart. Later, Victoria and Barnabas share a moment on the balcony, where she reveals her tragic past. She tells him how she endured painful treatments in the asylum before Josette's ghost helped her escape. Feeling connected to Barnabas, Victoria kisses him. Angelique, witnessing this, becomes enraged. The next day, Barnabas visits Julia, hoping to become human so he can be with Victoria. However, he discovers that Julia has been secretly transfusing his vampire blood into herself, seeking immortality. In a fit of rage, Barnabas kills Julia and orders Willie to dispose of her body at sea. Barnabas then catches Roger trying to steal from the secret room. Giving Roger a final chance, Barnabas offers him money to leave. Roger takes the money and abandons his family. Meanwhile, Barnabas saves David from a falling chandelier, but the sun's rays burn his skin, exposing his vampirism to the family. Horrified, David and Victoria flee. Feeling desperate, Barnabas turns to Angelique, begging her to lift the curse. She refuses and has him captured, locking him in another coffin. David, guided by his mother's ghost, finds Barnabas and frees him. As Angelique turns the townspeople against the Collins family, Barnabas fights back. In the final battle, with help from Elizabeth and Carolyn, who reveals she's a werewolf, they confront Angelica. Despite their efforts, Angelique's magic is too strong. Finally, David's mother's ghost intervenes, throwing Angelique into a chandelier, killing her. As the family escapes the burning mansion, Victoria jumps off a cliff. Determined not to lose her, Barnabas follows and bites her, turning her into a vampire. Now, they can be together forever. They kiss in the ocean, as Julia's body stirs to life as a vampire at the bottom of the sea. End the movie. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other recaps and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.